What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about the Indigenous missing women in Wyoming and Canada. We're also going to be talking about missing people as they have not gained enough national attention. And recently we have heard about the Gabby Petito case. I recently posted a video on Gabby Petito, and I did mention at the end of that video that there are so many missing people and we need to pour our time and energy and resources into finding all of them. Every family deserves closure. Every missing person deserves justice or to be brought home. This is such an epidemic at this point that we need to figure out what has happened to these people. In today's video, I'm going to specifically be talking about Indigenous women as I am learning more about their stories and about what happens in Wyoming or on reservations or in Canada. Before I get into it, please know that I am still learning and I'm doing my absolute best to do my research. I will continue to cover this for as long as I need to. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has served time in prison, and my entire life story is in the description box down below. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, it's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel and my podcast, where we are releasing a new episode every single week. All right, without further ado, let's kick this thing off today. So let's start with Montana. In Montana, Native Americans make up 6.7% of the population. However, they make up 26% of the missing persons reports. Now, this is super interesting to note because as I was doing my research, I found that in places like Montana or Wyoming, where over 700 people have gone missing in the last decade in Wyoming, which is where Gabby Petito was found, in doing my research, I have found that Indigenous people or Native American people, I'm not exactly sure what the correct terminology is to use here as I am still learning, these areas and these states, when they're dealing with a missing person report, it's unclear what jurisdiction would cover this. Is it state and local jurisdiction? Is it federal jurisdiction, as reservations are protected? Do they have no jurisdiction there? And I think that issue is so difficult when dealing with this case because who is going to find these people? Who is going to lead the investigation? What jurisdiction does that fall under? So as they determine that wastes time in missing person cases when we're trying to figure out like, okay, who's gonna cover this, right? Who's going to lead the search? And a lot of times it's communities that lead these searches. I also wanna put this chart on the screen. It's rates of violence against women. And American Indian or Alaskan Native, it's 14.4%. For non-Hispanic and white only, it's 5.4%. Between 2011 and 2020, 710 Indigenous missing people were reported in Wyoming alone. Now, this is why so many people were kind of outraged and upset by the Gabby Petito case. The media coverage of Indigenous victims was 30%, while for white victims, the media coverage was 51%. Some people are saying that the Gabby Petito case is missing white woman syndrome, where the whole country is shocked and devastated for the passing of Gabby, and the whole world is watching because she's white. And they're outraged that not enough coverage is being given to Indigenous women, people of color that go missing, and we don't seem to be as obsessed as a nation with people of color who are missing. Something that I found in my research, homicide is the 4th leading cause of death for Indigenous women under 20. And approximately half of all of those cases are misclassified as overdose, suicide, or exposure. Now, this is from a lack of resources. And again, as I was researching Indigenous women specifically that have gone missing, their families are not getting answers. And in so many instances, the autopsy was undetermined. Do you know how unsettling that is for a family member to have their loved one go missing and then be found dead and the cause of death undetermined? You're not seeing any media coverage. There was a case of Selena Not Afraid, who was found less than a mile where she had gone missing. Because of the terrain here, it was just difficult for them to be able to find her. Vice did cover this story, and Selena was found in a sagebrush on the side of the road. Now, maybe they can't find someone that killed her, but they could absolutely determine what her cause of death was. She was a young, healthy woman, and for her to die and just be found on the side of the road, something happened to her. Her case is not new though. Indigenous women continue to go missing and their deaths continue to be marked as undetermined, and these families cannot get justice for them. I'm going to read you an article that I found. It's just so heartbreaking. Before I get into that article, I do want to say here that instead of being angry that everyone's talking about Gabby Petito, we need to come together and make this a learning opportunity for law enforcement to be trained in reactive abuse, for them to be trained on mental health in general. I mean, they just need more training on how to deal with these domestic disturbances and domestic cases. We also need to be grateful, happy. It's a weird word to use here, but happy that so many people are talking about mental health and reactive abuse and domestic violence and all of those things that we believe, this is speculatory and biased, that Gabby was going through. This is not proven. This is just speculation from those of us on the internet that have encountered that kind of abuse. Gabby's case also sparked such national attention and coverage that so many people are very openly and very loudly pointing out that we are not talking about Indigenous women. So we need to use Gabby's case as a learning experience on how to handle missing persons reports, and we need to shine a light on all of the people that have gone missing. So right now, I do believe that we can use Gabby's case as a learning experience on what to do better. Media fascination with Petito mystery looks like racism to some Native Americans. The FBI has confirmed the remains found in Wyoming Sunday are the body of 22-year-old Gabby Petito. The mystery around the death of the photogenic young white woman with a carefree social media presence has been headline news across the country. And that's frustrating to people who say the media ignores an epidemic of missing and murdered Native American women in the state. Since 2011, Indigenous people have made up about 21% of homicides in Wyoming, even though they are only 3% of the population. That's according to a state report released in January. Kara Chambers, chair of the task force that released the report, says only 30% of Indigenous homicide victims had any media coverage. That number is closer to 51% for whites. The themes and media portrayal of homicide victims, that when you had an Indigenous victim, the articles were way more likely to have negative character framing, Chambers said, more violent and graphic language, really focusing more on sort of like where the homicide occurred versus anything about the victim. It's kind of heartwarming when we look at a white woman who has gone missing and it's able to get so much immediate attention, said Lynette Grable, who is Northern Arapaho, sorry if I said that wrong, and a leading advocate for improving Wyoming's response to missing and murdered Indigenous women. It should be the same if an African American person goes missing or a Hispanic person goes missing, a Native American. We should have the same type of equal efforts that are being done in these cases. Both she and Chambers hope that more people will recognize differences in the urgency and attention cases of missing Indigenous women, leading to an improved public response. And I absolutely agree. In my research, I also found that no one really knows how many Indigenous women go missing every single year. Hundreds of thousands of people go missing every single year, and each one of those cases deserve the same time and attention. If you go on the FBI's website, you're able to pull up all of these missing people. And as you scroll through, you can click on each one and they will give you a little bit of information about the person. The Gabby Petito case is absolutely heartbreaking. And it's just, the whole world is watching. And I think that is for multiple different reasons. I think a lot of us can see ourselves in Gabby or a sister or a friend, and we really relate to what Gabby was going through. We could see that she was in the body cam footage of the police officers, we can see that she was exhausted emotionally and just absolutely spent. You could see that she was trying to cover for her abuser, and the reason why I say that is because the 911 tape said that Brian was hitting her. You can see that her eyes are puffy and swollen. We do know the timeline from other onlookers saying that they did see Brian and Gabby fighting in this spot or that spot, and we know that this was a very unhealthy relationship. I think so many of us can relate to Gabby. I think that's why the world is watching, and it's also important to note that a YouTuber was the person that found Gabby's van, so they just happened to stumble upon it. I don't know if Gabby would have been found otherwise. In that same breath, there have been over 700 people to disappear in Wyoming, the same state Gabby was found in. And if we poured the same amount of attention and coverage into all of these missing people just in Wyoming, imagine the difference that we could make. Now, the FBI lists missing persons. They have a database and a phone number where you can reach out if you have any leads, even if you think you might be wrong. If you have any information from any missing person case, in the history of ever. It's so important to just give them any little bit of information that you might have. I've mentioned many times on my channel that the prison system disproportionately affects people of color. It's so clear in my research on missing Indigenous women and what they go through that race is a factor here. It is my hope that the case of Gabby Petito keeps the conversation going and keeps missing people on the forefront of everyone's minds. It is also my hope that we end the war on drugs and we implore all of our resources to find and bring missing people home. I feel like that's more important than chasing down addicts who just need treatment. According to a 2015 study, it is estimated that the US spends $51 billion annually fighting the war on drugs. Imagine what we could do to bring missing people home and justice for their families if we reallocated those funds. And I know everyone hates drug dealers, right? People ask for drugs. People don't ask to go missing. People don't ask to be assaulted. People don't ask for those kinds of things. Every single victim of assault, every single missing person deserves justice and deserves to be brought home. I'm gonna end today's video here. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in my next one.